President Trump's coronavirus diagnosis forcing the Trump campaign to recalibrate a little bit, with the vice presidential debate just hours away. The campaign's anxious to get back out on the trail and onto that debate stage. Joining us to preview tonight's Pence-Harris debate and talk about where we are with stimulus package and a lot more, Trump campaign senior advisor for strategy, Steve Cortes. Steve, welcome back to the show. It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's start off a little bit with coronavirus. I know that the president or the vice presidential debate is tonight, but a lot of eyes and discussion here about Joe Biden said yesterday that he doesn't want to do the debate if President Trump is still actively a coronavirus patient. What's your guys' position on that? I mean, the president said he's going to be healthy. There's no guarantee. If he has coronavirus, are you still going to go and pursue the debate?
Right. No, listen, there's not a guarantee. Clearly, the president's going to need medical clearance. Now, we're very confident that he's going to get it. The fact that he has zero symptoms as of yesterday, according to his doctor, is a great sign. And if you look at the timeline, assuming he gets those 3 negative test days in a row, there's plenty of time for him to meet all CDC protocols to verify that he is not contagious at that point and that he is COVID-free. So we're very optimistic and planning on that being the case and the debate going ahead as scheduled for the 15th.
Okay, so now that we have, I guess there's some clarity there on that, I want to hear a little bit from you about where we are in the state of the campaign, Steve. I mean, you've always been very honest on the show just about where things are. Things in the national polls in the battleground states and others don't particularly look good right now for the president. I mean, do you chalk this up to the handling of coronavirus? And ultimately, look, we're 28 days out from the election. What's the actual plan to dig out of this hole?
Right. Well, listen, first of all, national polls, are not that important to us, quite honestly. Battleground states are what matter. Of course, we don't have a national election. We have an electoral college in this country. When I look at battleground states, even the public polling, and I think a lot of it is flawed because of the inputs of oversampling of Democrats, but even the public polling that's out there shows that we are within striking distance in just about every battleground state. Our internal polling shows us even tighter than that. So my honest assessment, I'm trying to put my partisan hat aside for a moment and look at this objectively. I think that the battleground states are in play. And by that, I mean Joe Biden could win them and we can win them. So I think there's going to be a vigorous fight over the next 4 weeks for those states. And I really believe that the compelling case we have to make, the most compelling case, is the American economy. And the economic renaissance of this country is very real. It is accelerating. All the data prove that, not my opinion. And I think ultimately, that is the number one per polling. That is the number one issue for Americans.
Right.
And I think ultimately, when it comes to their decision point, they're going to look at the scenario of a potential shutdown, national shutdown, something that is being threatened by Joe Biden, which would be cataclysmic for this country, versus President Trump, who, even though he has the virus himself, has said we can manage these risks. We have to continue our march toward normalcy, including the economy.
Well, so if we're going to make the economy, you're going to make the economy front and center, why would the president shut down stimulus negotiations on Capitol Hill? I know about his tweet last night. I just saw Chief of Staff Mark Meadows saying the negotiations are over in terms of stimulus. This is a dramatically unpopular move on the economy, isn't it, Steve?
Well, look, the president wants aid to go to Americans. And by the way, the economic renaissance is very real. It's incredible. But we also recognize that there's a lot more work to do because of what the Chinese Communist Party did to our country. Far too many Americans are still out of work through no fault of their own. We want aid for them. The president wants it. The White House is even today looking into things he can do by executive order without the Congress. But regarding the Congress, he suspended negotiations, I think for good reason, because Nancy Pelosi was not negotiating in good faith. For example, let me be specific. She was trying to include stimulus checks for illegal migrants. People who don't belong in our country in the first place, who trespassed, who broke and enter into our country, to reward them with stimulus checks paid for by the American taxpayer is an absurdity. And it shows that she's playing pandemic politics, that she's trying to use the virus as a pretext to enact a liberal leftist agenda. The president has to hold the line on that and protect American citizens and our prerogatives. So I anticipate there will still be more negotiations, but he is a negotiator by trade, and he knows that at times you have to be willing to walk away from the table.
Well, let's pick up on that. You said you anticipate there to be no negotiations. So you're saying the White House Chief of Staff is wrong whenever he's saying that there is no negotiations.
No. I'm saying that they can restart. He's right, of course, that there are none now, but I'm saying, none at this moment doesn't mean that there won't be negotiations tomorrow.
Yeah, we got 28 days and the Supreme Court justice to confirm. I mean, the clock is ticking here, Steve, in terms of what can realistically happen. And Nancy Pelosi, look, I agree with you. There's a lot of stuff in that bill and all that, but that doesn't mean it couldn't have been negotiated. I mean, kicking it over to the next year seems like a way to basically have all the blame on your shoulders for ending the negotiations, no?
Well, no, I think if the American people take a realistic look, particularly, there were a lot of things that Nancy Pelosi put in that bill that were ridiculous. But to me, again, the most absurd and the one that's quickest for people like me to communicate is the idea that she wanted money for people who don't belong here, for illegal migrants. I think if we effectively make that case to the American people, they're going to say, you know what, I understand why the president had to hold the line, even if it means that those checks are going to go out a few weeks later. But again, too, I also believe that by walking away, he's going to force the issue. And my hope is negotiations will restart. And Nancy Pelosi will realize that she really should take care of the American people at this time, at this critical time of economic resurgence in the face of a virus.
Last question for you, Steve. Give us a preview of tonight's debate. What's the vice president's main message going to be on the stage?
You know, I think on his side, he's going to talk, of course, about this economic revival that I've been talking about. As far as Kamala Harris, I think he needs to define who she is. According to GovTrack data, that's an independent group with statistical models of legislators, she is literally the most liberal member of the U.S. Senate for the year 2019, to the left of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. On policy specifically, I think he's going to press her on fracking. Unlike Joe Biden, she has been crystal clear. He's been all over the map. She's been crystal clear. She wants to ban fracking. That would be catastrophic for our country, for our economic and national security. Regarding the border, she also wants to decriminalize illegal border crossing. That would effectively vaporize our borders. Expect those issues to be pressed by Vice President Trump tonight.
All right, Vice President Pence. All right.
I said it wrong
Steve.
twice.
All good. You're all good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next on Rising, the number of administration officials have been contracted COVID. They're on the rise. We're going to tell you who else when Rising continues.